Hello and welcome to the Geeksly Creations podcast. I'm your host, Elle, and to our audience, it has been probably over a month now since our last episode. I believe this is episode 65 or it could be 66. So I'm not sure, but it's definitely been more than a month since our last episode. A lot of things have changed. Well, I would say in my personal life, as far as the show, everything's pretty much the same. We're still looking for host and guest to join me on this fun adventure I like to record every few weeks. I would like to say it's going to be every 2 weeks like it used to be. Actually, at some point, I think it was every week because I had the time and was more dedicated. Honestly, it falls on me. But I will definitely try to at least bring out these episodes once a month in between everything else going on because I have met so many amazing people for the last few months as well that I would love to feature on our show. And honestly, this episode is very close to my heart. I know it's a little cheesy, but it is very close, and you all will hear eventually why that is. I have had quite the journey, just life, right? Just life. But this, episode, we're going to be touching on two different subjects kind of merged into one, and that's going to be the afterlife and spiritual guides. Now, bury in our subjects, that we normally talk about, it's all my personal opinion. Of course, take what you want from it or simply just for entertainment purposes. But if you do have something to share, I'm more than happy to chat about that. You can send me a message on Instagram, whether it's on the Ankitsu Creations podcast, on Facebook, or my personal Inked Enigma underscore. I think it's an underscore. Yeah, it's Inked Enigma underscore. But without further ado, um, so we're going to kind of just jump into it real quick. The concept of the afterlife has really been in human culture and the spiritual realm for ages. I mean, I really can't even really find a time frame where it wasn't something that we as humans were curious or explored. And it's really different depending on the culture and the time periods, but honestly, it's still the same. Like, we all researched it because we were curious to know what happens when we're no longer physically in this world. So we don't really have an answer, right? That's kind of leaving it to depending who's asking and and who's answering the question. Um, but we can definitely start exploring here a few interpretations that have come into literature or research, right? Because we don't exactly have, I would say, scientific research on the subject. And again, depending on the culture, religions, there's different interpretations of what happens to the soul after death. So some believe in reincarnation, where the soul is reborn into a new body to continue its journey of growth and learning. And others envision a paradise or heaven where the soul resides in eternal bliss. And then there are those who believe in the concept of hell or purgatory, where souls undergo purification or punishment before reaching their final destination. And for example, this is something that I've touched on our channel before. You can find this episode on YouTube, and I believe also on Castbox. It was an actual episode that I did probably last year at some point, and it touches on the afterlife and what the Aztec um, believed. So they had a really complex system of beliefs regarding the faith of different types of souls. Those who died from natural causes or accidents were taught to, were well, they believed they journeyed into Mictlan. And while those who perished in honorable ways, such as sacrifice or combat, they were destined for Tlatlocan or other celestial realms. And despite the dangers and uncertainties of the afterlife, the Aztecs believe that death was not the end, but rather a transition to a new phase of existence. So, through rituals, offerings, and prayers, they sought to honor their ancestors and ensure their safe passage to the underworld or the heavens. And if we think about it, within the Mexican culture, Day of the Dead is really just that. It's not supposed to be this creepy holiday, nothing like that at all. And if you ever have the opportunity to visit Mexico during this time of the year, it is beautiful. I have had the opportunity to do so in different parts, actually different regions, different cities, and they all have something special to add to this tradition. And through this tradition is where we remember those who have passed. For me, I have always done a very small little altar for those who have passed, including my pets. So you have three different dates, right? Day of the Dead, you have your a day to celebrate the life of children who have passed, the day that you have to celebrate your pets who have passed, and then, of course, the adults. So it's about three different days that you celebrate their lives. And in this altar, you're able to not only put their picture up, if you all are familiar with the movie, Disney movie Coco, very similar to that. You'll put their favorite foods, their favorite snacks on there. And the idea is that they will come to visit you for that one night where the veil, right? The veil will lift and they can come visit, right? So it's very spiritual, very, it's really a sweet gesture if you think about it, right? Although I'm sure for most of us, when someone passes, you don't just think about them one day out of the year, you think about them every day. So moving forward, so, one of the fascinating aspects of the afterlife is the phenomenon of near death experiences. Many people who have had brushes with death report encountering a bright light, feeling a sense of peace and love, and even meeting deceased loved ones or spiritual beings. These experiences offer tantalizing glimpses into what might await us on the other side and raise profound questions about the nature of consciousness and existence. So, a little bit about why this episode even came to my head. And I'm telling you, my best ideas always come when I'm in the shower or I am doing the most random things. But this episode was like, yeah, I got to talk about it. Well, a few weeks ago, I'm sure a lot of you are aware, I live in the state of Texas. And I live in the central state of Texas, where unfortunately for us, we've had some terrible, frightening weather come through. So not only the thunderstorms, but there have been tornadoes have actually hit or have come through the central Texas area. Of course, you have Houston, you have Dallas as well. They've also been hit pretty badly with these tornadoes. And that's definitely another episode I will want to dwell into because the change in climate is intense. It's intense. Something is going on and I'm sure if I did some research with everything else going on overseas, it has to be in some way or form related. All these bombs, all these things being thrown into the atmosphere with an already debilitating, atmosphere at this point. Earth is not doing so well. And so I feel like we're getting hit with these crazy thunderstorms and like these crazy tornadoes because of all that going on the other side. Of course, I have a separate channel, called L's Unfiltered. Um, I don't know why I can't remember the name of my own channel. That would probably have more of a politically charged, I would say, aspect to this conversation. But for now, we're going to reel it back in. So we will definitely come back to the climate change and how I believe one and the two are aligned. So again, so bad weather a few weeks ago. I happened to be in a nearby town of Temple, a very small town, very cute little town, I would say, affordable. And I was out there running an errand with my roommate. Um, not aware of how bad the weather was going to get. And unfortunately, it's a common theme going on right now. A lot of Texans are getting the alerts very late. Once, the storm is there, the tornado's there, that is when they're getting these weather alerts, which is not the best scenario, right? So exactly that. We're here in this town running an errand, thinking we're gonna go to dinner after. Super excited because I'm a big wing kind of, I love wings. And there's a place out here called Pluckers, and that place has like these fat wings, and they give you this huge thing of ranch, and like their fries are like waffle fries. It's delicious. So And no, I'm not sponsored by Pluckers. I wish I was though. And if you want to sponsor my channel, please do so. Send me a DM. We would love to have sponsors. But so we're out here running our errand when I happen to be on the phone with one of my friends, and suddenly I get totally distracted because this alarm goes off in town. Normally when I hear the alarms, especially here where I live, it's they're running a test of some sort, but this sounded bad. And then you feel the darkness come in. You start seeing like these clouds roll in. And then of course in that moment is when my phone goes off with the weather alert. There's a tornado nearby. But before leaving like where I'm staying, right, which is like 30 minutes or so, or maybe not even that, I didn't get any notification about even rain, nothing. So I'm now like panicking. I'm like, what's going on? Like, we need to get out of here. This looks bad. And so at the time, I tell my friend on the phone, like, look, I got to call you back. Something's going on. I got to get to safety. Like, there's something wrong. Right. And so we get in the car with my roommate, and I'm, telling them, like, hey, let's go home. Let's go home. But we had to take the highway to get back home. And the moment that we hit the first red light turning, into the highway, you could see the wind start picking up. You can see, like, you can feel it in your bones. Something is wrong. Like, you need to get to safety. So the next best thing we could do was go into this grocery store, which you're familiar with HEB. That's a Texas thing. HEB is amazing. However, between HEB and Aldi's, HEB has higher prices, but that could be inflation. Anyway, unrelated. So we make it into a parking lot. And my next idea is like, we need to get out of this car and we need to go into this grocery store for safety. We park the car, and the moment that I look over to start opening my door, to get into this grocery store, I see the last of the people run into that grocery store, and the clerk closed the doors. I cannot. I can't even. It complete devastation in my heart when I saw that, because I said, we're about to be in the middle of this tornado, stuck in my car. Like, my heart just deflated. And of course you start feeling the winds pick up. This is like 100 mile per wind. Like, you can start hearing the hail coming down. It was the scariest, most frightening experience I've ever had in my life. And it went on for about 20-25 minutes. And right before it got, really bad, where I thought, man, this car is about to get thrown out to the other side of this parking lot, one of my other friends happened to message me and was like, hey, be careful because, it's about to thunderstorm in our area. I literally saw my phone come in with, like, it pinged that message, and then my phone fell out of my lap. I didn't even bother picking it up because I was trying to hold myself together during this entire time. At this point, the car is moving. You can't see anything outside of the windows. It is completely dark. It is, loud. It's just insane. And I hope I never have to experience that again. So with all that being said, about 20-25 minutes of my life spent in my car. I don't know how my vehicle didn't have any more damage than it did. It is getting fixed, and it's all fixable, all material things. Um, Leaving out of that parking lot, you just had no words. I had no words. I mean, at some point I was laughing because, unfortunately for me, when I'm uncomfortable, I laugh. That just means I'm having a bit of an anxiety episode. And then I just told everyone, that I cared about, hey, this happened. I'm okay. I'm heading home. But just wanted to let you know this is what happened, right? I don't think even I believed the intensity of the situation, or the how traumatic it was for me until that night. I don't think I really even really processed everything. I don't think I processed it. And so I remember sitting, at dinner, eating my favorite food, and then coming home and not remembering what that tasted like. It was just unreal, honestly, unreal. And so, we come home, we have dinner. I'm laying in bed the entire night. I am having nightmares, nightmare after nightmare, waking up every like 2 hours, and finally the next morning I have to get up for work, my day job. And I said to myself, yeah, this is not a good day to go into work. Emotionally wrecked, like definitely just too much to process all at once within 24 hours. And so I took the day off, spent most of my probably morning in bed just looking at my ceiling, not even really watching anything, not really paying attention too much. um, I don't think I really understood or really processed what happened until later that evening. And of course, the friend that I was on the phone with, when they called me to just check in, obviously, because I left them in shambles too, like, I gotta go, something's wrong. That's probably the worst thing you tell someone before you hang up on them. Um, they mentioned something to me that stuck with me and has stuck with me since. And just complete surprise. I don't know. I don't even know how to explain that feeling. So what they said to me was, "Hey, I am just glad you made it out okay. I'm glad that your roommate's okay. And the other person, the other lady." And so I was like, yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate it. So sorry, like I ended a conversation like that. And then I said, "What other lady? Like, what do you mean? It was just me and my roommate." And they're like, "No, there was another person in the car with you." And I was like, "No, no." I'm like, "It was just two people." And they were adamant. They were like, there was a third voice in the car. And I completely just cried. I just cried. I had nothing, no other emotion to show, because I know that for the intensity, the feeling, the um, intensity of the storm, my vehicle should have sustained broken glass. The only thing it did sustain was really bad hail damage, pretty much the entire car, mostly the driver's side. And then the driver's side tail light was damaged, not totally broken, just like damaged, right? Some of the rubber on the side of the windows was damaged. Some dents were pretty big, but that's it. But for the intensity, even when I took it into the repair shop, they told me, wow, if you were in the middle of this, they had no idea how my windows didn't break. But I'm glad they didn't. And I felt like someone was really looking out. Someone was really taking care of us that night. I don't know, who it could have been or what, but it did bring me back to a story. Again, I don't know how true this is. I just remember my mother telling me this when I was younger. So I've always been that person, or not even person, that kid, right? That brings attention to themselves. And I've always said that, like, it's like an energy thing, right? Even I'm surprised because I gotta say, sometimes I'm not in the best mood. But when I'm out there in the world, I tend not to show that, because nobody out there, we don't know what they're going through, and nobody out there deserves my moodiness, if that makes sense, right? And so I tend to be really, or try to be really happy and really inviting in a sense. Even if I'm just giving you a smile, that's just something that I try to do. And so when I was a kid, I again was a very cute kid. But I would always wave at strangers, or like, like maybe call them in a certain way, or like you just be a really happy baby, right? And because of that, a lot of people would approach my mom, "Oh, can I touch her? Can I carry her?" And obviously it wasn't always, she wouldn't always let strangers grab me. But sometimes, depending on the situation, she might, and they'll kind of play with me and my toy or whatever. And then there were times where I guess like they were so curious about me, and I was so kind of, cute and curious looking, that they would kind of leave this like energy about them with me, right? And that would cause me to have um, physical ailments. So I would get a headache, or I would cry like all night. I would get a fever. And my mom has always been spiritual. um, and so she finally one day was like, this is enough. Like every time, I take you out, you're getting sick, and that's not okay. So she took me out to a spiritual guide, right? Someone that dwells in the profession. And they, went ahead and put on one of those protecting bracelets on me. Um, and then she did a cleanse on me, and then she told my mom. She's like, well, she's going to be okay, but it is just that, she tends to um, pool that energy, right? And sometimes it's not like the best. And I'm just gonna throw that out there. I wonder, maybe that's why I get a lot of migraines. Like I'm pulling all this negative energy. Nevertheless, so they do the cleanse, and then she tells my mom, something very particular about your daughter is that when she came into this world, someone else's soul attached to her. And I know it sounds very creepy, and I'm telling you, this is just things my mom told me. I don't know how true it is, right? But it was a woman, an older woman, who basically the spiritual guide said was um, my person who was meant to take care of me, almost like a guardian angel, if you will, from the other side. It was an older lady, and she said to her, sometimes she's kind of mean to her because she's a baby and then she's older. They don't really get along yet, but eventually they will learn to coincide, and she will always protect her. So, of course, when my friend comes out and they're like, hey, I heard a third voice in there and it sounded like a lady, I immediately thought about this story my mom told me about. I'm like, wow, if this is true, then this person or this entity or this, I don't want to say entity because that sounds negative and demon like, and we don't want that. But no, if this guardian angel saw me in a situation where could have been life threatening, and they protected, what they could. They protected me, protected my roommate. Then I'm mind blown, right? But that's my near death experience over the last month. And again, it's something that has stuck with me since. And it's been a few weeks now. Definitely haven't left my home. Well, I can't even leave now because my vehicle is being repaired, but haven't left my home really much, unless I'm like with friends. It's something to think about. And a little maybe unrelated, but I would say situations like that or experiences like that also make you think about what you currently are doing with your life and whether or not you would be okay if that were to be your last day on earth. And honestly, it changed my perspective on a lot of things. Of course, I don't want anyone else to experience a life-threatening situation to have that epiphany, and say, I need to change what I'm doing. I need to go for what I want, right? I hope that you're able to do that without the near-death experience. But what about these spiritual guides, right? We talked about this potential spiritual guide that I may have, this guardian angel, if you will, right? That's what my mom used to call it. So, across different spiritual traditions, there is a common belief in the existence of beings who offer guidance and support to souls on their journey through life and beyond. Whether they're guardian angels, spirit guides, or ancestral spirits, these entities are said to offer wisdom, protection, and encouragement to those who seek their guidance. So, they are supposed to help you navigate life. Now, some people claim to have had direct experiences with their spiritual guides, receiving messages or signs that help them navigate life's challenges and make important decisions. Others connect with their guides through meditation, prayer, or other spiritual practices, forging a deep and personal relationship that transcends the boundaries of the physical world. So I don't know, I was going to say, I don't know what the word, anyway, um, I think I was going to say transitional, and that's not the word I was looking for. I am very into like angel numerals, angel numbers, if you're not numerals, numbers. And people can be like, that's crazy talk. Like it's just a coincidence. I don't think much of our lives are coincidence though. I think a lot of it happens for a reason. We may not know the reason right away, but a lot of our life happens for a reason. And so for me, anytime I see numbers that are consecutive, it's like, wow. And I look it up immediately. Like, I kid you not, I look it up on Google. I'm like, what does that mean? And it makes sense. For the most part, it makes sense. Now, I definitely understand that sometimes, it can be a little on the maybe I wouldn't say crazy side, but it depends on the situation. Depends on the situation, and it's like a lot of these TikTokers who do tarot card readings, and they're like, "Take what resonates with you." I agree with that. Take it if it resonates. If it doesn't, it doesn't. Don't get crazy about the situation. So, are spiritual guides real, or are they simply figments of our imagination? So, of course, there's skeptics that dismiss the experiences. Of course, because they're going to think it's just wishful thinking, hallucinations, or simply, again, makes sense, wishful think your hallucinations because we may be in trouble of some sort and we're trying to make ourselves feel better, right? So we maybe create the idea of this. But for those who have encountered their guides, the reality of their presence is undeniable. So, like I said, it really just depends on your beliefs. Like I said, some people are definitely able to say they've experienced something similar where maybe they were having a really tough time in life and there was a sign, there was someone, they heard someone, they felt someone. That's also actually one of my stories, short stories, and I believe my first book of scary stories to keep you up at night, volume 1, which you can still find on Amazon. um, there was a story in there that I shared. And as you know, a lot of those, as you all know, a lot of those stories are actually based on true events, whether they were my own or family members. There was one particular one that I remember writing in there that happened when I was a teenager. I was going into high school, so probably eighth grade. At the time, my parents had separated and we were moving out of our home, which I probably had lived in since I was first grade. So about 7, 8 years of my childhood in there. I was very upset. During this time, parents getting separated, you know, my dad moved out and it was just my mom, myself, and my younger sister. Everything was packed. I was the last one to pack. I didn't want to touch anything in my room because I didn't want to believe I was leaving, right? Um, and finally, one day, my mom picks me up from like school or something, and she had errands to run. And she said to me, "You have today and today only to pack up the rest of your room. And if you don't, like, that's it. Like, you're not taking it." So I'm upset. I'm like, mad. Why is she making me do this? She drops me off at the apartment. And, I go to my room, stomping my feet all the way in there, throwing just stuff in boxes, upset of like the entire situation, right? And I remember at some point I got really, like, really physically upset, which has never really happened in my life before. But I was a kid. I had a hard time dealing with a lot of things. Um, Now I have therapy. No, I've never gotten physical in my life. But at the time, like I said, not able to talk your emotions out as a child is very detrimental to how you handle hard situations when you can't, or you feel like you don't have someone to talk to. And so I started throwing things all over the room, like just throwing stuff on the floor, getting things out of the box, just throwing things at the wall. So finally, I just threw myself on the floor, pouting, crying, screaming, put my hands over my face, and as I'm crying, I feel someone grab my hands, like in the sweetest, most caring way. Someone grabbed my hands, and I thought it was my mom. I thought like she came back home and she heard me, and now she's gonna apologize. And so I removed my hands from my face, and there's no one there. It gave me chills up my spine. And something that is consistent whenever I experience things like this, I have chills up my spine. Like I get goosebumps, right? And I remember it like it was yesterday. And then so I looked around the room and I said, well, time to pack up because this place is haunted. But it was quite the experience to know that maybe physically who that was isn't here anymore, but spiritually they've always been looking out. So that's what I like to take. And I hope that you take from this episode too, because we have reached our end. I hope that whether or not you have a spiritual awakening or a situation that makes you really think, about what you could do better or how you could treat people better, because I feel like that's a big impact on the world too. You give and you get that back, right? You get what you give. Let's put it that way. Um, it's something that I've always actually believed in. Sometimes you have people thinking about how things don't ever work out for them, right? They're always just complaining and sitting down complaining. I don't have enough money. I don't have enough this. I don't have enough that. But I don't think they ever sit down and think of how their actions affect other people and how that's always going to find a way back to them, right? So if you take nothing at all but my crazy stories here, then I hope that you enjoy life and you're grateful every day for anything that happens, whether it's good or bad. And you're nice to people out there and nice to yourself, more than anything. Um, you matter, I matter, everyone matters. It's a crazy, crazy world out there right now. I can't get on TikTok without having a happy video and then 20, 30 really sad ones, whether it's somebody's dog passing away or just everything going on overseas, right? So, yeah, be nice to yourself and be nice to others. And of course, if you want to share any of your spiritual guides, spiritual stories like I did today, feel free to do so. Like I said, you can find me on Instagram on the Dankitsu Creations podcast, on Facebook. If you haven't, please like and subscribe and share all of our platforms. We are on Amazon. Um, what else are we on? Spotify. We are basically everywhere, Audible. So look for us under the same name, Dankitsu Creations Podcast. And if you like to be featured as a host, co-host, or a guest, either or, definitely let me know. Send me a private message to my Instagram, which is inked enigma _. I'm always looking for someone who wants to talk with me. Other than that, I want to thank you all for continuing to support this channel. I definitely see the views, I definitely get the comments, and I love it. I will definitely try to keep a consistency with these because I do know it also helps me get ideas and just thoughts out of my mind. And I love that for me. But as always, I hope you enjoyed this episode and I hope you have a great rest of your day.